Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. That's Zach, and we are going to be talking about one player every team should want to make sure they keep out of the transfer portal this coming season, transfer portal time. Now, I get it. The transfer portal is still over a month away, but we want to get out in front of it a little bit, talk about some of the stuff, and also give credit to some of the young players. I think this is also an area where we can kind of give credit to some of the young players
Mhm.
on these teams and just talk about how impactful they've been to their team and how impactful they can be in the future. So I got Zach here with me to talk about it all. Zach, how you doing?
Good. I just got done yelling into my microphone for 30 minutes about why people should make stop making dumb arguments about Julian Saint's Heisman case.
There's been a lot of dumb arguments made, so somebody had to say it, and Zach has decided to be the one to say it. Thank you for doing that, Zach.
I may have taken too much time, but that my I'll just say this: I think there's a superpower in keeping your team from being in bad situations.
Novel concept.
Just throwing that out there. But that's not what
I've
we're here to talk about.
I've
We're here to
heard you
talk
win
about
by more points if actually you play really, really terrible in the first half and then come back and play well in the second half, and you play in the SEC and you've played bottom tier teams in the SEC the entire season. Am I talking about a certain player? I'm not sure. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. That'll be for you to
yeah.
decide.
Yes. Well, I was gonna say to be fair, but I'm not gonna go there because Indiana fans might jump all over me. Um, I like Fernando Mendoza. He's great. He's my Heisman
Yes.
front runner right now.
Yes. Go
So
check out Zach's video. That one will be posted before this one. So all you should have to do is just go over
yeah,
and check that out there. So
it'll
thank you,
it'll be
everybody.
it'll be posted if you think it survives the quality check.
That's true. If it's not posted, it's that Zach yelled too much and did not have quality. So, all right. So we're like I said, we're gonna get into these players, and I do want to preface this with a couple things. All right. So right now there is no 5 for 5 rule. So don't come at me and say, well, JR, there could be a 5 for 5 rule, and they could get 5 years of eligibility. It doesn't look like that's going to pass. I don't believe it has passed, and everybody who was talking about it's basically like it's not passing. It's not gonna happen. So do not come at me for something like that here. And then also, we have no idea what's going to happen with the JUCO players and their eligibility. So it's hard enough to track eligibility as it is. But to add in the JUCO stuff and everything, we'll see what happens when that comes to terms. But this is a very, very early look at the transfer portal for these players and the type of players you do not want to go into it. So Zach has written down one name for each team, and then I have additional names on top of that that I will mention outside of Zach's one name. So Zach, start us off with Illinois. Who is your one player from Illinois that Illinois fans or the Illinois team should not want to go into the transfer portal?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of consternation about the defense, and I think if you don't keep veteran leadership, it's only going to get worse next year. And so I think Matthew Bailey is a maybe a big name to watch out for. I again, I'm not anticipating he's going to leave. He's going to jump ship, but you're losing a lot of guys in that secondary. You really want to hold on to Bailey. You really want to hold on. He's been a good player for them uh, in a center field of that defense. I just don't. I don't think you want to lose him.
For sure, and that's another piece of this too. We're not saying that these guys are going to leave or anything like that, but in the transfer portal era, you never know. Guys can get enticed with different things, and so Matthew Bailey's definitely one that I had written down as well. Also, the two interior guys, Tamawa Digijoy. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. The interior defensive lineman, and then Kurt Neal on the interior of the defensive line. They are just so valued in the transfer portal that bringing back two interior defensive linemen like that would be huge for
Mm,
them. And then the two wide receivers, Colin Dixon and Hudson Clement. You have no idea who's going to be starting at quarterback next year for Illinois. Hank Beatty's going to be gone out there. You need two experienced wide receivers to come back, and so whatever happens there with quarterback, whether it's a transfer or whether they bring the next guy up, we'll see what happens. But you need to make sure you have weapons on the outside to support him. Anything else on Illinois, Zach?
nope.
Okay, let's get into Indiana, and I have a long list of Indiana, so it was hard to choose from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think with Indiana, it's It's who are the young guys who can really form the next core of
Hmm.
this team, because I think they've had such a solid, like, it's not just that they have good players, but they've been the ralliers, right? Like the Elijah Surratts, um, obviously Fernando Mendoza coming in and being a really big piece for them, but Aiden Fisher, y- D'Angelo Pons, right? Those guys have been just rocks. So who's the next rock that you don't want to lose? One guy I have is Relija Hardy,
Hmm.
7 sacks. He's a sophomore, so he's around at least another year. You hope, but like, what if a Georgia comes calling, or what if an Alabama comes calling, or what if an Ohio State comes calling? Right, they're going to lose both their linebackers. I I think the way Cignetti is building this program, I don't think they will lose him. But that's just, I think he's a guy you don't want to lose who's been dynamic on that defense.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana sounds like at this point they're not going to lose anybody they don't want to lose, right? I mean, they have the financial resources and everything else. It'll really be a test to see, with all these players that can come back, to see, how that goes. But I mean, the biggest thing for me is not who you're going to lose to the transfer portal; it's who are you going to lose to the draft more than anything
Yep.
else. That's the
Yep.
biggest question with Indiana. So, like, I have written down here like Amari Farrell, Tyreek Tucker, Omar Cooper Jr. I think Omar Cooper Jr. is almost certainly going to the draft. I mean, we'll see what happens. He might come back to improve his draft stock a little bit, but you have Jamari Sharp, Isaiah Jones, who has been the green dot when Aiden Fisher is out. I think if I had to pick one, he would probably be my one. But Hardy makes a lot of sense too, whatever linebacker is there. And
I was very close to picking Jones.
yeah, I mean,
I was like between him and Jones.
it's kind of between those two. Yeah. And then Bray Lynch could still come back on the offensive line for
Mm,
you. So if you could bring back a piece of your offensive line there. And then two young guys, Charlie Becker's gotten some run with Elijah Surratt out,
yeah.
but I think he's proved himself. And I don't think he'll go anywhere because he's going to get into a starting position next year. But also Kobe Martin, running back for them. He's kind of come in some mop up time and he's looked really good when he's come in. He's another one you for sure want to keep in there as well. So like I said, with Indiana, it's less so about the transfer portal, more so about the draft, and honestly, more so to point out to people who are like, "Oh, Indiana's going to lose all their players." It's like, no, they're not. Like they're going to lose some players, but this is going to be a lot like last year, where everybody thinks they've lost all their good players. It's like, the magic's over. No, if Indiana keeps the majority of these players, they're going to be really good against next year. I think people just need to get used to the fact that Indiana is going to continue to be a good football team for years to come.
Yep. Agreed.
So, all right, let's get to Iowa, Zach. Iowa actually has a lot of older guys on their defense and in certain positions, so it's kind of hard to pick these, but they do have some young guys that you could look out for here. What was the young guy that you picked that they need to have stick around for next year?
Yeah, I looked at offensive line because, Iowa is again a offensive and defensive line driven team, and I went with left tackle Trevor Lauk. I think that they've one other younger offensive lineman, but I could see, especially with all these older guys moving out, if Lauk, if people want a left tackle, and like that's another premium position in the portal. Maybe they take a run. Some team takes a run at him with some NIL money.
Yeah, Trevor Lauk was top of my list as well for sure. Also, Zach Lutmer, Deshaun Lee, guys like that in the secondary, going to be huge to try and bring them back. And then the duo of running backs, Kamari Moulton and Jazz Patterson as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
So, I mean, you got some receivers and stuff like there, but I don't know. Like, Iowa's just been such a run first team and everything that it feels like the running back, the stable of running backs is probably the most important thing to keep going here. And I have a feeling that Iowa might be going into the transfer portal for a receiver or two. And also, they're bringing in a really good receiver. I don't think people realize that that Iowa's actually got a pretty good recruiting class coming in. They've got one of the
Mhm.
best quarterbacks, like quarterback recruits that they've ever had coming in. He might be their best quarterback recruit they've ever had. I haven't checked the history of the recruiting rankings for them, but they have a really good quarterback coming in, a really good wide receiver coming in, and that's going to be huge for their team. I don't think the quarterback will start next year, but you never know. We'll see what happens. So,
Kirk Ferentz continuing to try to fight the retirement tour.
listen, he said he feels great. He said that he wants to keep on keeping on, and I don't know, like He's done a good job here in the era. I know they're only going to win 7 or 8 games this year. I guess the bowl game could get them to 9 if they beat Nebraska and win the bowl game too. But you know, I, I think Kirk Ferentz is going to eventually get to the playoffs here soon. Eventually, I thought it was going to be this year, maybe, but he could get there eventually. We'll see what happens.
Mm.
So, all right, Zach, Maryland. A lot of young guys on this Maryland
Yeah,
team, so there are a lot of names to choose from. I narrowed it down to 5 for me.
yeah.
You narrowed it down to 1 for you. Who's your one guy?
I think it has to be Malik Washington
Hmm.
because he's the face of your program. And if he leaves, and this is going to be a theme for a number of my picks, it feels like it's kind of a cop out because, like, well, the quarterback, duh. But here's the thing with a number of these teams, and Maryland's the first one on my list, you lose your quarterback, you lose a ton of momentum. And like, it just undercuts your whole recruiting process. So it's for me, it's Washington. I know they have a lot of other younger, really good younger players, but if you lose Washington, I mean, Loxley might as well be fired.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the main reasons why they want to bring Loxley back, right? Is to keep
Yeah.
a young guy like Washington there. So yeah, I completely agree with Washington. He would be my number one. I think your duo of edge rushers there on the defensive line is Zahir Mathis, Sidney Stewart. Actually, Bryce Jenkins, the interior defensive lineman, I think he needs to be mentioned as well. He's been a,
Yeah.
a nice piece, and I could see a team coming to come calling for Bryce Jenkins if Maryland doesn't recognize and pay up with him. I mean, I think they will. They're not stupid. And then the other one, I know he had some drops in the game against Michigan. He's struggled with drops a little bit this season, but I see the route running. I see the athleticism. I think if he can just get his hands together, round the ball, he could be a really good tight end for him. That's Dorian Fleming, the transfer they got this past year, to bring him back for another
Yeah.
time. I never know. Do you think guys who transfer in are more apt to transfer again? I would love to see the numbers on that. I don't know if there's numbers on that, but
I think it depends. I think it really depends on the transfer and the culture of the program they go to.
yeah, that's
Right.
true.
Like I think yeah, I think it really depends on that.
Good point. Good point. All right. Well, Zach, let's get to Michigan. Michigan, another team with a lot of freshmen. I actually only wrote
Mhm.
down 2 names because I think there are 2 names on here that are more obvious than anybody else at this point. These 2 names, if you just keep these 2 guys, you should be able to build around them and give them something special at some point. It's no secret who they're going to be. Give me one of those 2 names, and then I'll mention the other one, Zach.
Remember what I said about Maryland?
Yes.
It's the same with Michigan. Bryce Underwood. You lose
Except Sharon
him.
Moore, if he loses, Bryce Underwood is not getting fired right away, right?
No, he's not getting fired, but again, in a lot of ways it undercuts his credibility.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Bryce Underwood's not going anywhere.
No.
He seems
No.
happy at Michigan. They're kind of giving him his freedom to kind of learn and grow as he goes. They're obviously compensating him very well, so there's no issue there. But the other one that I had down is Andrew Marsh. He has just really come
Mm.
on really really well. There's other guys that you can mention. They have some freshmen on the offensive line that have done pretty well.
Yep.
You could mention Jordan Marshall for sure. There's a ton of other guys you could mention with this young Michigan team, but really the 2 you need to focus on more than anything else because I do think this is the core staple of your team. Listen, Michigan can bring in a running back and have a really good running game. Michigan can bring in some offensive linemen and have a really good offensive line again because Michigan does that under Sharon Moore. They know how to bring in running backs and bring in offensive linemen. I'm not confident Sharon Moore would bring in a good quarterback or a good wide receiver if they lose Bryce Underwood and Andrew Marsh. Again, I don't think they will lose either of them, but
Yep.
definitely need to keep those 2 guys around because those are 2 special players that are going to be really good for you next year and the year after that before they leave for the draft. So,
Yeah. Agreed.
all right, Zach, Michigan State. Michigan State, another team, some young guys. I was actually surprised how long my list was for Michigan State because I didn't think it would be super long. And then I went into it and I was like, oh yeah, this guy's only a junior. This guy's only a junior.
Yeah.
And I really looked at it and said, these guys need to stick around for this Michigan State team, especially if Jonathan Smith is coming back because he's going to need all the help he can. Who's your one guy from Michigan State?
I picked Nick Marsh, and a big part of it is they need a quarterback. Like they need a better quarterback. And I don't think you're going to attract a better quarterback without a premier wide receiver. And unlike some of our other picks, I think this is very possible for Nick Marsh to go somewhere else because he is much better than he is a much better player than the rest of his team.
Well, we saw it with Keon. What was his name? Keon
Keon
Coleman.
Coleman.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and that was a different coaching staff. Obviously not the same thing, but I when you watch Nick Marsh out there, it feels like he's trying to do it all by himself. And that's one of the things that typically I look for and I say that's not a great sign for them wanting to stick around if they don't believe in their teammates enough. And he's a wide receiver. You kind of get that with wide receivers, but the way he will catch the ball beyond the line of scrimmage and then run behind the line of or above the first down and then run behind the first down to try to get a bigger play. It's like, dude, just trust your teammates. Get down,
Mm-hmm.
make the play. And I do have wonders for concerns about Nick Marsh and what's going to happen there. So Krishan McCray, another one needs to be mentioned. Connor Moore actually has a little bit of NFL draft love. He was not starting at the beginning of the season, but he's got some of the intent, not the intangibles, the physicality, the physical attributes. That's what I mean to say that you want in an offensive lineman at the NFL. I don't think he'll go to the NFL, but he's definitely a guy that another team could come calling and say, hey, he's got what we need here to come play offensive line for us. Young running back Mekhi Frazier, Jordan Hall, Alex Van Summeren, the interior defensive lineman for them. And then, Zach, my only punter I put on the list, Ryan Eckley, the best punter in college football, who they wanted to punt to Caden Weegan. I'm not going to bring it up again.
Yeah.
But definitely need to bring Ryan Eckley back if he does not go to the NFL draft.
Somewhere, somehow, Jim Tressel is smiling.
Yeah. He would totally go for Ryan Eckley in the transfer. Watch out for Iowa. Iowa's coming.
Yeah. Nice.
So, quarterback-wise, do you think it's a necessity to bring back Alessio or Aiden Childs?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Because I wrote down whichever quarterback you prefer, Alessio Milijevic or Aiden Childs. I don't think they prefer Aiden Childs anymore. Seems like Aiden Childs is going to transfer.
Yeah.
But I don't think they would hate that.
No, but listen, if I can't pronounce the other guy's name, sorry, say it again.
Milijevic, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Okay, I'm not going to even try.
It's kind of Russian, it sounds like.
Yeah, he's very, I think, very Russian. Or Ukrainian, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, good call.
He this is one of those things, and you're Michigan State, which I know, like, Michigan State has a very varied history. Like they've been very low at times, they've been very high at times. Respect yourselves and get yourselves a better quarterback. Like, I don't mean that negatively to this kid, but like, if you can, get a dude, pay him.
Only a freshman, right? Alessio?
Yeah.
Only a freshman.
And maybe Alessio is the dude that they need to train up. But I'm just saying, like, stop trying to be a mid-major Big Ten team. Be a Big Ten team.
Mm-hmm. That was my only thing with Alessio is like you gave up on Sam Levitt for Aiden Childs, and now Sam Levitt made it to the playoffs at Arizona State, albeit with Cam Scadaboo. He did a lot of heavy lifting there for that team, but you still got to give Sam Levitt credit.
Yep.
And now it sounds like Sam Levitt could be on the move once again for another bigger program. He could go to an LSU or something like that. Heck, he could be at Indiana for next year, for all we know. I mean, at this point, Kirk Cinetti can probably pick whatever quarterback he wants out of the transfer portal if he doesn't want to go with Fernando Mendoza's younger brother. That's if Fernando Mendoza leaves. I think he's probably going to leave, but who knows? The kid does stuff different. So I just worry if you let another guy like this go, does he turn into something somewhere else and you just wasted a year trying to play somebody just to bring somebody else in and try to build?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So, I still would want to go and get a proven veteran. But
But
I
it's
also I
it's
think you
gonna
make a good
cost for
point.
that too, right? Like, does Michigan State do they have the financial investment to go make that happen, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if they
yeah, I
do.
don't
We'll have
know.
to see this offseason. So,
That's a good point.
all right, Zach, Minnesota. We got the Minnesota Golden Gophers. What do they need to keep around? I got a long list of names here. What is your one name that they need to keep around?
Yeah, I think going with the trend of players that you don't wanna lose for momentum, I'm not going Drake Lindsay. I really thought about Drake Lindsay, but I think the player that would actually be the biggest emotional blow is Coy Parrish. Minnesota kid, like four-star recruit, really, really gifted player, might be the best player on that team.
I think he's the best player on that team.
Yeah. Well, I think you can make a case that Drake Lindsay is becoming that best
Yeah,
player.
but
Like,
Drake Lindsay's still young.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think if you lose Coy Parrish, his best player on the team, he's a Minnesota kid. And here's the thing, I really could see him leaving.
Yeah, I mean he definitely got offers last year, right? And he decided to stick around. So I think if he stuck it out last year and stuck around and they continue to try to integrate him more into the offense and the special teams and stuff like that, I can definitely see him continuing to stick around. But this year for Minnesota, they might finish the regular season 6-6, 7-5. And while it's not bad, I mean that's still over what their win total was. I believe their win total was 5.5. There have been some heartbreaking things at Minnesota, but PJ Fleck runs a really good culture there. So
Yep.
Drake Lindsay was the other one that I had for sure. It was either Drake Lindsay or Coy Parrish to me. I actually think you need to bring back the two linebackers and Maverick Baranowski and Matt Kingsbury. I know that they've not been like perfect this season, but I think a couple of linebackers, experienced guys to come back would be huge. Anthony
Mhm.
Smith might go to the draft, but if he doesn't go to the draft, you need to keep him around as well. Greg Johnson, John Nestor, Kerry Brown still has like 2 years of eligibility left after the season as well. If you can bring back Coy Parrish and Kerry Brown, I mean, that safety duo going into the season, they've not lived up to what I thought they would be, but you still see the talent there. You still see two good players. And then, of course, the freshman this season, who I think is going to turn into a dude in the coming years, but Emmanuel Carmo. He's played a little bit this
Mhm.
season. He's flashed a little bit here and there, but definitely want to hold on to another Minnesota kid and Emmanuel Carmo.
Yep. Yeah.
So.
Good picks.
Good picks. All right, let's get to Nebraska here, Zach. Nebraska, another one with a quarterback that I think is probably a pretty obvious answer. Is that who you got?
I was gonna go with the kicker.
Okay.
No, it's Dylan Raiola. Dylan Raiola.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And for the same reasons that we talked with Malik Washington, Bryce Underwood. Like, you lose him, it kind of undercuts the momentum you've been building.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, I know Dylan Raiola, and we've been critical of him this season, with some of his mobility in the pocket and holding onto the ball a little bit too much, it seems like. But you got a 5-star quarterback. If you're Matt Rule, you want to try to attract more 5-star quarterbacks. You have got to build a good offensive line around Dylan Raiola this year and get him in the first or the second round. Like, you need him to leave early.
Mhm.
He's been starting since a freshman. You need him to leave early, go get drafted in the first or second round, and then that way you have the calling card to be able to give to recruits in the future and say, look what we just did with that 5-star. We're not afraid to play you early either. You come in and you deserve the spot, we're going to play you early. I'm not taking anything away from TJ Lateef. TJ Lateef has done a pretty good job here and in relief of Dylan Raiola, but you know, you got to keep him around, not just because he's a good player, but because of the status and everything else,
Mhm.
having him go to the NFL would bring. Other names I had was Emmett Johnson. He could come back next year. Ja'Cory Barney, Justin Evans, the center, a second year at center for him would be really good for the offensive line. I think Andrew Marshall, the defensive back there. And then I wanted to ask you, is it a necessity to bring back Elijah Pritchett? He technically still has one more year of eligibility because he's
Hmm.
not been what they wanted, but he's kind of like Connor Moore. I mean, he's got more of the physical traits and attributes that you want. He he's somebody that has one more year of eligibility. I feel like you bring in a different offensive line coach, somebody with some more experience, and they should be able to turn Elijah Pritchett into something.
Yeah, I mean, I think you always want to keep offensive linemen that are experienced.
Yeah.
Um, he has not been great, but I I think you don't want to lose the potential. And I think you make a good point. Like Pritchett has not been the only problem with that offensive line.
No, no, not at
And
all.
so I think you try to hold on to him. I think you try to get a better offensive line coach. That is the biggest necessity for Nebraska this offseason.
Hmm. And the offensive line coach is Dylan Raiola's uncle. So I
Eee.
I don't know if that would impact things at all, but I think at some point Dylan Raiola's got to be going to his uncle saying, "Dude, get you guys a block for me."
Yeah.
So I mean,
Nepotism.
I would be, I'd be going to my uncle, dude, stop letting me get killed back there in the pocket,
Yeah.
protect me a little bit.
You know whose fault it is that I broke my ankle? Yours. Do better.
Oh boy, all right. Northwestern, Zach. I got a few names written down here. Who is your one name that
Thi-
Northwestern needs to bring
This
back
was
next year?
this was a fun one. This is hard. I have Michael Kilbane, defensive
Hmm.
end. They're losing a lot on the defensive line, which has been we've said it all season, underrated unit. They've been excellent. They rotate a lot. Kilbane has 3.5 sacks. He's been active on that defensive line. I think you want to keep all your defensive linemen because that
Hmm.
it's really worked for them to rotate. But I think Kilbane in particular would be a tough loss for them.
I think Kilbane's arguably been the best player on their defense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think you make that case for sure.
yeah. Antosaka could come back next year as well, so probably want to keep him around. If he does come back, Caleb Kamalafe definitely want to keep him
Yeah, that
around.
he was on my short list.
Hmm.
Kamalafe.
And then Griffin Wilde, he can come back
Yes.
next year as well. So if you're going to bring in another quarterback, you need to give him a reliable target on the outside and coming out of the slot. And Griffin Wilde can bring that for you. And he just seems like a great culture guy. I mean, he just seems like the type of guy that's really pumping the team up the entire time. Coming in from an FCS program, getting a shot here. I would not be surprised if some bigger programs come calling for Griffin Wilde. Good
Yep.
route runner, doesn't have the best physical traits in the world, but he's definitely a guy that can go up and get the ball, get himself open to get the ball, and be a reliable target for a quarterback. So,
Yep.
all right, Zach, Ohio State, they have a lot that you could argue because they also have players on the bench that haven't played this season that you could argue as well.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of those guys on here, but I also have the obvious answers. Who is your guy that they have to bring back next year?
Yeah. I mean, so I did not go with the obvious here
Okay.
because I just don't think like I think it's pretty clear Julian Sayan's not going anywhere. Jeremiah Smith's not going anywhere. Like you have the best even if Brian Hartline leaves, you have one of the best offensive minds running your team.
Hmm.
So like I just don't think I think that's a non-starter. And Carnell's going to the draft. But I would say the next men up in that wide receiver room. That's where I'd be concerned. So I have both Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter.
See, I thought about going with the receivers, but don't you feel like they just have enough in that wide receiver room that if Mylan Graham or Quincy Porter doesn't come back, it's just like, oh, just bring in the next 5 star because it's going to be
Yeah,
Brandon Innes and Jeremiah
probably
Smith next year.
Chris Henry. Yeah, I don't know. I just think I like you lose that time of development though. And that
Yeah,
maybe that's my thought.
yeah.
But
The other guy that I had that's kind of been on the bench this season was Malik Hartford. He's been injured, and
yeah, he's
he
probably
Jalen
gone.
the Jalen McLean kind of won that job. Not kind of did. He did win that job over Malik Hartford. And Malik Hartford, I think, is a guy that could do a really good job of playing up in the box next season for you. So, kind of be in that Caleb Downs replacement role. And then the two obvious answers, Julian Say and Jeremiah Smith. I mean, you could talk about offensive line too. Philip Daniels, Austin Seyerveld. Would be nice to bring back Carson Hinsman if he's going to come back. All those guys.
Yeah.
But definitely, I mean, your big two guys that you need to bring back are Julian Say and Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah. I you unlike most programs in the Big Ten, though, you'd argue that most starters for like Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan, and maybe USC, like they're not going anywhere, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like we said at the beginning, we're not necessarily saying these guys are going anywhere, but you just need to make sure they don't go anywhere.
Right. Well, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
So, all right. Anything else on Ohio State?
Nope. Nope.
All right. Let's get to Oregon. Oregon, kind of same boat as Ohio State. They
Yeah.
got a lot of young players this season that you
Yeah.
could talk about. I narrowed my list down to about 4, but there's definitely more that you could bring it to. Who is your one guy with Oregon they need to make sure?
Yeah. I went with their 5-star freshman, Dorian Brew. He, very highly rated, got hurt early. And now it's the corner that's getting a lot of run as a freshman is Brandon Finney and not Brew. And so you wonder, they'll rotate guys and whatnot, but is there, could someone come calling and say, hey, you can get more playing time over here rather than riding the bench and being behind another freshman? I doubt it, but like he might be the guy, like he like is supposed to be one of the next great corners in college football. So I would hate to lose him because he got Wally pipped.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many guys in that secondary. You can mention Brandon Finney, Trey McNutt. He got injured as well. Neem Offord. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many good young players. Aaron Flowers, he's playing right
Yep.
now. Dylan Thieneman, you could say, but I think Dylan Thieneman's almost certainly off to the draft. He seems like a top 3 draft pick kind of guy. So there's a lot of players you could say there. If I was going to switch to the offensive side, the one running back, I would say you need to keep more than anybody else because he just does such a does such a good job in pass protection and in his ability to run the ball is Jordan Davison. I think
Yep.
you definitely need to keep him around. And then obviously the star freshman wide receiver who's out with injury right now, but will be back soon is DeCorian Moore. Need to keep him around
Yep.
as well, obviously.
Agreed.
So. All right. Similar boat. Once again, we have Penn State. Penn State with a lot of talented guys on this team. Who's your one guy that need to make sure to keep around?
Well, this is the first one where I'm like, he's definitely gone. It's Chaz Coleman. Like he is potentially your most dynamic player on defense in the future. He has not played. Think we know why he hasn't played.
Because you think he's gone?
Oh, he's gone.
They did say it was because he didn't match up super well. Like against Iowa, he didn't play because they didn't match up super well. You're not buying any of that?
No.
Yeah. I don't think I'm buying it much either. Let me look at
Yeah.
his snaps really fast just to be sure. Okay, so he played 28 snaps against UCLA. And then after that, he played 4 against Northwestern, 8 against Iowa, 15 against Ohio State. And he actually had 3 pressures in that game. Of his 15 snaps, he got pressure on the quarterback 3 times. And he has not played since that game. So he did not play against Indiana or Michigan State or Nebraska.
Yeah.
So.
My Penn State fans aren't going to like this. I think he's in scarlet and gray next year.
I mean, if Ohio State wants him, right?
They're going to need pass rushers.
Yeah. He was on the injury report for Nebraska.
Yeah.
So maybe he's just injured.
Maybe.
I'm trying to look at the positives for Penn State here. Okay.
Yeah. I know.
Help me out.
No.
No, I think definitely you need to keep Chaz Coleman around. I don't care what happens with the coach. When the coach is hired, the coach has 2 jobs immediately when he gets there. Go talk to Terry Smith and make sure you give him a job someplace. Go talk to Chaz Coleman and make sure you throw him a bag so he sticks around for next year. Because for whatever reason, he's not playing right now, probably because of injury, because he's on the injury report. But it does kind of seem like a interesting thing for him to get 15 snaps against Ohio State and then not play again after that. So,
Yep.
Yeah. The other one that I would bring up is tight end Luke Reynolds.
Yep.
And they've got some receivers there too that I think have shown some promise as well. Ethan Grunkmeyer has shown some promise at
Yeah.
times. I mean, he got kind of thrown into an impossible situation, so you could definitely look to him to keep him around.
He's really grown in the past few weeks that he's played. I mean, again, watching him against Nebraska, he's still slow at times to get downfield, but he's making quicker progression, quicker reads. He's poised. Like I am impressed by him.
And I mean, he's a true freshman, right? I mean, some of that
Yep.
comes with the territory. So,
Hmm.
all right, let's move on to Purdue. Purdue, Zach. Very interesting one to talk about here with keep players around. Out of the transfer portal, I did come up with 4 names here. Who was the one name that you came up with?
Yeah, I have Charles Correa, linebacker. He's the third leading tackler, 3 sacks. I believe he's a sophomore. Has had a nice season.
Yeah, Charles Correa for sure. Definitely somebody you need to make sure you keep around there. I also had written down Antonio Harris. He's come in relief of Devin Mockabee and done pretty well. And then the 2 interior defensive linemen, Ian Jeffries and Jamarian Harkless. Jamarian
Mm,
Harkless was one of the few guys that did not transfer out after last season. So he came back and
good.
he's played this season. I don't think he's necessarily been one of the best players out there on the field, but he's only a sophomore. And he came back and he obviously feels very passionate about Purdue to go through all that change and everything. And,
Yeah.
Barry Odom can see talent. So if Barry Odom keeps putting him out there, I'm inclined to
Yeah.
believe him that he has talent and maybe he just needs to keep developing a little bit more. Um, should Purdue prioritize bringing back either Ryan Brown or Malachi Singleton?
Uh, I don't know. So I had thought about putting either of those guys on the list, and I think it really depends on what do you think you can do. And I hate to say it that way. I might prioritize Singleton actually over Brown just because I think Singleton might offer you more of a change of pace. But I just don't know. And it's hard because Purdue, not Rutgers, Purdue is trying to rebuild itself. And so
Hmm.
I think a question that Barry Odom has to ask is who do I want us to be? Um,
I mean, I think Ryan Brown gives you a lot of the same stuff too, right? Like
yeah, they're both
they're
redshirt
both mobile
sophomores.
guys. No, Singleton is a true sophomore, I believe. But
True
yeah,
sophomore.
Brown,
Okay.
redshirt sophomore.
Yeah.
I believe Brown did leave and then for North Carolina, and then he came back in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
maybe
would
like
tend to
maybe
say you need to prioritize Brown because he is older. But I mean, to me, just choose whichever one you want and make sure you
yeah.
keep that one.
Yeah. I agree.
So, and I think it's going to be good for Barry Odom to continue to have, you know, a consistent quarterback there. I don't think he wants to keep trying to go after a quarterback someplace else and bring him in. I think for
Yeah.
Purdue right now, stability is key, and you want to do that. So,
Yeah, it's a good thought.
all right, Rutgers, Zach, who you got that Rutgers needs to make sure they bring back?
I think they are in a similar spot as to a number of teams where you've got to go out and get a good quarterback, or you've got to keep your quarterback that you believe in behind Kaliak Manis. Make sure that he has
Is that because
weapons.
Kaliak Manis is
He's
graduating there?
graduating. Yeah. So you've got to make sure that whoever's coming in, whether it's the guy behind him or if you get a transfer, so you got to keep your receivers, KJ Duff and Ian Strong. Now, Ian Strong might go to the draft. He's a junior, but if he doesn't, you got to keep those guys because they're NFL level receivers. And you can go out into the portal and say, "Hey, we've got money and we've got receivers."
Yeah. KJ Duff just a true sophomore, right? He
Yes,
cannot go to the draft.
correct, correct.
Okay. Ian Strong could go to the draft because he is a junior. So we'll see what happens there. Antoine Raymond was another name that I got
Yes, I
there.
thought about him too.
Junior
Yeah,
running back, done really well at times this season. Ran the ball for pretty well in spurts. I say pretty well for a running back running against Ohio State in spurts. And then the cornerback Joe Masco, I think is somebody or Joe Bo Masco. I think is somebody you want to bring back. He's
let's
been
go.
one of the bright spots of the defense this season for them. And then true freshman that they wanted so bad, they got him to enroll early. Wadiq Collier. He's not played a whole lot this season, but if he's one of the best recruits that Greg Schiano's ever got at Rutgers, and when he had the opportunity what's the word for it when they come early, reclassify. They took it because they wanted to make sure they got him in there. Obviously, Greg Schiano thinks very highly of him, and so you want to make sure you keep him around. So,
Yep.
anything else on Rutgers?
I think the other thing, so Rutgers is known, and Greg Schiano is known as a defense first guy. How big would it be if you can have another year where your offense is taking more steps forward?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I know people will look, well, Rutgers is probably going to finish 5-7. That's a disappointment. Their schedule was harder this year, and their defense, they lost a lot on defense.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first year in a while where I've looked at the offense and said, I'm a little nervous about the offense in terms of, like, if I'm a opposing team, I am concerned about what they bring to the table. And if he can continue to build that culture, I think that's actually a helpful and healthy reminder that Rutgers is becoming more of a two-dimensional team. Because I trust they will get the defense fixed.
Yeah, I trust they will too. I mean, Greg Schiano's not going to continue to let those issues happen, and it was evident that he did not make the right hire at a defensive coordinator this season. So, whatever they do with that, hopefully that'll make big improvements for them. So, all right, next, Zach, we have UCLA. I think pretty much everybody knows where we're going with this one. What's your choice for UCLA?
We want to keep Neuheisel at the offensive coordinator spot. That's what we no. Nico Iamaleava, come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right. Yeah, it's the same thing. Malik Washington, Bryce Underwood, Nico Iamaleava. You got to keep your quarterback. Got to keep the face of your program.
Yeah, I totally agree. Nico is the guy you need to keep around. I also think linebacker Isaiah Chisholm, somebody on the defensive side that has played well at times this season, shown some promise. And then Roderick Pleasant, the cornerback, Andre Jordan Jr. is another guy who's young that you could possibly keep around and have him in there another year as things kind of continue to develop there. But I definitely think those are probably the three guys you focus on the most. But as long as Nico doesn't go to the draft, and I don't think he will go to the draft, but he could get drafted based off his physical traits alone. But we'll see what's going to happen there. But I definitely think you need to try and keep those three guys around if you can.
Mm-hmm.
So
Agreed.
All right, USC, Zach, what you got for USC?
So I went Hassan Longstreet, backup quarterback, because I mean it's I would almost guarantee Mayaba's gone after this year.
Like gone to the NFL?
Yeah, gone to the NFL. And even if he's not, like, you want to have what a lot of people think is their heir apparent. You want to let him develop under Mayava if Mayava stays. And I think there could be offers for Longstreet to go start somewhere else, especially if Mayava stays. So,
Yeah, my big thing is if Mayava stays, that's probably the big thing that would, try to entice Longstreet to go elsewhere. So
yeah.
kind of surprised to hear you say that you think Mayava is going to
Yeah,
leave.
no, I do. I think Mayava's going to stay. Sorry.
Well, no, I was saying with the reasoning of like
Yeah.
Longstreet's number one guy, because my number one guy I would have is Mayava, but that's more against the draft than it is against,
Yeah.
the transfer portal or anything like that. Right now, PFF has Mayava as a late second round pick. But I'd like to think if you stick around with Lincoln Riley enough, you're, you're gonna get up there higher than that. I would think.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe he sticks around. We'll see what happens. Kamari Ramsey is another guy. Jacoby Lane, Makai Lemon, but Jacoby Lane and Makai Lemon are both off to the NFL. I'm pretty sure Kamari Ramsey is probably off to the NFL as well. Jamal Jarrett, he got injured, interior defensive lineman for them. I think important for him to come back. And then Eli Sanders, I believe, is gone. I don't think he can use a red shirt. So you definitely want to make sure you bring back Wayman Jordan and King Miller too. Don't let King Miller, you know, kind of blow up a little bit with his abilities. Make sure you let King Miller know that hey, this is going to be a two running back system next year
Yep.
with Jordan and Miller, and make sure he sticks around.
Yeah. Just going back to Rutgers for a minute. Did you know Ian Strong is the number 40 player on PFF's big board?
No, I did not see that. So yeah, he's definitely gone.
He's above Matteo Uiagalelei.
Wow, I did not know that.
He's above Elijah Surratt,
Wow.
above Gabe Yakus.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
looking at it now. Yeah, he's gonna be a first or second round pick most likely.
yeah, it's a really good player.
Yeah, well, he's shown it this season.
Yeah.
He's a really good
Sorry.
player.
That interrupting
No,
interrupted the flow there, but
no, you're fine. Let's continue to flow at this point and get
oh, there you go.
to Washington with a number of guys for them. I mean, obviously you have like Damon Williams, he's a big one. Desmond Roebuck, John Mills, but you have a guy different than that, Zach. Who is your guy?
Yeah, I went with Alex McLaughlin at safety. I think again, I think the offense, Damon Williams is obviously the number one guy, but I just don't think he's leaving. So because of that, I'm like, well, who's the guy that's maybe the glue in the defense, especially with other guys leaving? And I think Alex McLaughlin, he's their, I believe their leading tackler. He's really played big for them, for the Huskies. And I think he's a guy you really don't want to leave because he's a culture guy, he's a leader, and he's played big for the Huskies.
Yeah, chip on his shoulder coming in from northern Arizona and everything as well.
Mhm.
I think Decker DeGraff deserves a mention here
I
too.
thought about him. Yeah.
Tight end. And then Adam Muhammad deserves a mention here too. So
Mhm.
need to make sure you keep him around as he's done a pretty good job in relief of Jonah Coleman. And we mentioned him early on in the season or early on in the preseason as somebody that could get some run there at Washington, and he has because he's a good back and he's done well. So
Yep.
all right, Zach, and the team that I thought about the most when I had this idea, because they have a lot of players that Luke Fickell was going to be relying on, and that is the Wisconsin Badgers. Very
Mm.
difficult to nail it down here, but you have nailed it down to one player. Who is your one player that Wisconsin needs to keep around more than anybody
I
else?
so this might sound insane. I've got Carter Smith, the freshman quarterback, who has a combined like he has his stat totals are 180. I think it's 181 yards, one touchdown, one pick. But the dude just has a confidence about him that has been very different from every other quarterback that's come in. And I think you need attitude to be able to win at Wisconsin. And so I don't care if he's the starter next year or he's there just pumping up the team. I think you got to keep that guy in Madison.
Well, and especially if Billy Edwards sticks around, right? Because if Billy Edwards sticks around, the job is most likely his. Like I like Carter
Mhm.
Smith a lot, don't get me wrong, but he is still pretty raw in some areas and still needs to develop a little bit more. I don't think Wisconsin would be in a bad situation with him starting next year, but I do think that with Billy Edwards and some of his development and everything else, and just what you've had in the quarterbacks at that school, pretty much ever since Luke Fickell's been there, like I know Danny O'Neal was supposed to be kind of the reliable backup guy, but he wasn't this season. If it is Billy Edwards that you bring back and a Carter Smith at the very least is just a reliable backup quarterback that you can have, like that's enough for me. So I had
Mhm.
Carter Smith written down as well. I mean, it's no secret there are plenty of other guys written down too: Mason Posa, Christian Allegro, Cooper Catalano, all linebackers that are yeah linebacker-ish with their system, the way they work. All linebackers. Tretch Kekahuna is somebody on the outside that you need to make sure you keep around. Joe Brunner is somebody on
Mm.
the offensive line that you need to keep around. And then the running back, we just saw him against Illinois, and he looked really good. Darian Dupree. You need to make sure you
Hmm.
keep Darian Dupree
Yep.
around as well. This Wisconsin team can be a pretty good team next year if they keep around some of this young talent and fill in some holes with some better players. But it's going to start with keeping this young talent around. So we'll see if they can make it happen.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. All right. Anything else on transfer portal or anything like that before we get out of here, Zach?
No, no, no. This was good. My mind's now locked back into Ohio State, Michigan.
Yes, yes, and I'll have an Ohio State Michigan video, one or two coming out the rest of the week as well. So for all you Ohio State fans and everything, and we're gonna do our preview on Tuesday night. We'll make sure to mention every single Big Ten game, predict them all, talk about the rivalries and everything like that as well. So check us out Tuesday night as we react to the college football playoff rankings and then preview Week 14, the final week of regular season Big Ten football. Looking
Hmm.
forward to it. Should be a great week. And we should have a great episode with you there in the live chat. We appreciate you being here. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.